this video, we are start exploring question number 7. Please create the pivot table and chart to identify the relationship between pages viewed and the browser. And so for this question, and of course we are learning, I directly telling you what kind of chart and the table you should use. But I also want to emphasize here, you have to use pivot table or chart to identify relationship instead of scatter plot. So in question number 3, we explore the scatter plot because both variables are quantitative data. For question number 7, as you notice that the browser itself is a categorical data, so in that situation, you cannot use scatter plot. You must use pivot table or pivot chart. And one thing I want to emphasize that the pivot table is also called cross tabulation. And so the reason we call pivot table is actually because the Excel. So Excel creating this table called pivot table. But if you talk to the statisticians, most of the time we use the word cross tabulation. Okay, so they mean the same thing, pivot table and cross tabulation, because they both are table, and one variable are used to label the rows, one variable is used to label the column. And creating the pivot table allow you to put two variables in one table to help you to understand the relationship. Okay, so before we jump into the Excel file, I want to emphasize why we're addressing this question. It's because of one of the business problems. So the Heavenly Chocolate would like to use the sample data to determine if online shopper who spend more time and view more pages also spend more money during their visit to the website. So before this point, you're already exploring the average spending by day, average spending by day in the browser. For this, it's just adding another layer to help you to understand, hey, does the page view and the type of browser actually have some kind of relationship? If so, and when you are targeting the page view, you also might already affecting the browsers. When you're marketing targeting the browser type, you might already affecting the page view, so you don't waste your money on both ends, right? So if page view and the browser does have some kind of relationship. Okay, to address this question, let's look at our data set together. Okay, so this is the data set where we've been working on for the past 6 questions. For this 7th question, we are using this Excel spreadsheet data to help us to derive this cross tabulation. And to start, please select all the columns and make sure you are including labels. So this is the little detail sometimes students forget about including labels. So when you are creating pivot table, you must include the label. Okay, so and also the second place I saw a lot of students make a mistake is somehow they are in a hurry. They did not including all the data you have. So make sure you double check. You must select from the beginning your label to the end of your data set. Some students, like I said, for some reason, they are missing 1 or 2 rows. So then you end up your result is totally incorrect. So make sure you're including everything. So once you select your data, and then you are going to insert, and then choose pivot table. And then I like to put my result in the new worksheet. It allows me to find them easily. So I will put in the new worksheet and then click OK. And then once you're creating, you can name it as a Q7 because this is question number 7's answer. So after you do that, and then make sure double check the question one more time. And then the question is looking for the relationship between the page view and the browser. So it does not emphasize whether you should put the page view at the row or browser at the column or either way. So you can, based on your preference, to do that. So in this example, I want to put the browser as my column and the page view as my rows. Okay, let me drag the page view. So first of all, you go into your pivot places on the right hand side. Okay, let me move my shrink my video a little bit. Okay, so now you are able to see the page view, and I will click the page view and hold it. Left click the mouse on the page view, hold it, and then drag it to rows. Okay, you drag it down to the page views. So now you are able to see. I already grouped it. I don't want to group it. I think the reason they grouped it because in my previous example I really grouped it. Okay, so anyway, so I drag it to the rows. So this is what you should see. So those are the unique page views. And then second, I'm gonna drag in my browser to the columns. So here they go. So this is the margin of my table. Now inside is blank. So for here, we are focusing on the frequency versus like before we focused on the payment. Of course, you can play around, you can put the payment inside, the amount spent in between. But here, let's just focusing on the frequency itself, okay? How many, for instance, how many users are using the Chrome and view certain amount of pages, right? So now I'm gonna drag either browser or page view. Let me drag the page view to the values. Okay, so once I drag the page view to the values, you are able to see on my cross tabulation here, they pop out with the numbers. But if you look at the grand total here, that's supposed to equal to my total sample size, but now it's 241, which is not. The reason is that instead of showing you the count, basically how many customer using Chrome view 2 pages, then instead of showing you how many customer, they actually showing among those customers total how many pages they've used. So that is not what we are looking for. Therefore, you need to do an adjustment. So choose one of the value inside the cell, right click the mouse, and then changing to summarize value by pick count. Okay, so now the grand total here is 50. That's exactly how many customers we have, is 50 customers. Okay, so now we get it right. So the second thing you need to adjust is the for your quantitative data. So for the quantitative data, we do not like this display here is every unique value become one class. So that is not what we are doing here. We want to grouping them. Okay, so if this is exams, like for instance, our case study exam, you have the freedom in terms of how to grouping that. So the rule of thumb is that you don't want to treat every unique value as a class, so you will lose point because it doesn't show any insight. If you look at now, I cannot get any insight. You want to group the right amount of the classes so that you are able to see certain pattern. So again, usually what I do is if the sample size is less than 50, I try to pick the class size between like 4 to 6. If it's very large, let's say 1,000 data, so I might make my class size to 20, so no more than 20. If more than 20, sometimes you have too many classes and you won't be able to get any insight. Since here we have very small data set, and I also want to follow what I did in the previous question. So here's the previous question number 2. We did kind of play around on these browsers. And so I want to use the same classification. So 2 to 5 is my first class, 5 to 8 is 7 class, a second class, 8 to 10 is my third class. So I will pick 3 classes, and then so for each class, I need to know the class width. If you don't remember how we did it, make sure you review the question number 2 again. So I identify the class width equal to 3 because I'm using the next class upper limit 8 minus the previous class upper limit 8 minus 5 give me 3. It'll allow me to identify, hey, my class will be 3, and then the smallest value is 2 and the largest value is 10. So now I want to base on this way to grouping my data so that I can get a better insight. Okay, I come in here and I pick the I'm going to the row label here because the row label is the one for the number under the row label are my quantitative data's value, and I pick one of them and I right click the mouse and I will pick group. As I just mentioned, the smallest value is 2, largest value is 10. I want to group by 3 instead of 1. Okay, 3, and then I click OK. So here they go. So this is the cross tabulation we are looking for this question. And then as you can see from this cross tabulation, you can get an insight that is, first of all, if you look at, we have 15 Chrome users browse 2 to 4 pages. And then if we're focusing on the Firefox, and then we have 8 people are viewing 2 to 4 pages. And but for the Chrome user, we don't have any Chrome user are browsing 8 to 10 pages. So it seems like the Chrome user know what they wanted, maybe. Like I said, you can put the amount spending here to see how much money they actually spent. But in terms of the frequency, how many customer visiting belong to each category, this is the insight we can get, right? So besides the pivot table, we also can creating the pivot chart. So how can we creating pivot chart? So after creating this pivot table, make sure you see this tab called pivot table analyze. So under this tab on the right hand side, you will be able to see called pivot chart. So you can just click this, and then we just pick the basic one, the column pivot chart, and then we can click OK. So here they go. And so both give you the same, exactly same information because the pivot chart are getting the number from your pivot table. However, it gives people, your audience, different feelings, right? So some people don't like see the number itself. They might more visual people. Most people are visual, so they prefer to see a diagram versus see a table. So although both give you the exact same information, your audience might prefer this pivot chart. But as you can see that in order to creating this pivot chart, you always need to starting from your pivot table, right? After you got your pivot table correctly, and then you can developing this pivot chart. And so again, we can find the exactly same information. And so for, if you focus on 8 to 10 page users, and you won't see any Chrome users. But then if you focus on 2 to 4 page viewers, and most of them are from Chrome users, right? So you can get a lot of insight to understand the relationship between the page view and the browser they use, so that you can help the business decision maker to understand, hey, if I want to spend some money on marketing certain type of browser user, and then as you know, if you put a lot of marketing on the Chrome, and you are appealing to the viewer who don't view a lot of pages, and then you are thinking, okay, since they don't view a lot of pages, we should direct them to the pages they want to buy the goods, right? So the recommendation of the goods they want is more important, right? But then if you are targeting the other users, other browser users, and so you might have opportunity that the user just browse around your website, try to identify the thing they wanted. So now maybe for them, you don't want to really targeting them to specific item they wanted, since they are the user like to the shopper like shop around. So you might try to put many interesting thing on every pages, so that they can find eventually getting the thing they wanted. Okay, so this is the answer and the instruction in terms of how to answer the question number 7. And I'm sure you will find this video is very helpful for your case study exam 1. And so good luck with your homework and also your case study exam 1.